Mr. Haefley.
Well, first of all, I think one of the reasons that you're going to be successful is Mr. Reyes. I worked with Mr. Reyes at Greeley West for several years, and he does a great job of working with students and motivating students. And I hope that all of your employees or all the people we hire are of his caliber, because he will ensure success. You know, so if we continue this, I mean, it'll cost us $700,000 for every 2-year group, essentially, if we're going to continue this on. Is that what?
I don't know what the number is, but it's some
ballpark.
number.
So for us, after this 2 years, then we're just going to figure out how to pay for that in the future.
The purpose of this money being spent on training on these 2 years worth of students is to build systemic. It's not going to cost us $700 to keep some of those systems that are created during this 2 years at 6th and 7th grade. And
so it would be similar to Avid. So we're going to do professional development to make this not only an Avid building, but a Gear Up building, and coordinate both programs to assist our students.
Right.
Is that a fair
that's
analogy?
A fair thing.
Okay. Thank you.
Dr. Richard.
Well, and just clarifying that creating a college-going culture through this Gear Up grant cannot be reliant on if the student has a computer in their hands or not.
Right.
That it has to be bigger than that, that's a piece of technology that we've got the benefit for this next 1,700 kids to have, but that it goes far beyond just being able to have a computer in hand.
Right, right.
Mr. Hall.
Well, I would agree with that. It goes much more than that, but in order to sustain the program and continue with the program for future years, other than the 2 years right now, it is going to require a similar investment to what the grant provided today, at least because we're funding staff. Now, not all of that. I mean, it would be somewhat less than that probably, but it's in order to keep this program going on into the kids that are now in 1st grade this year, so that we get that college going mentality going. That means that there will be, I assume at that point, it's going to be a hardware investment that follows that kid. That's part of the program to go through. And I think that we're going to have to realize that, and we need to look at that. If this is an ongoing program for everybody, and we're going to offer it to next year's 6th graders, so now we have 3 years of students in the program. And then 2 years from now, we got 4 years of students in the program. And so if the grant covers those additional, each one of those additional years for the addition of, so that we have 7 years total in the program, and then we don't start picking up anything until the end of that 7 years, that's one thing. But if it doesn't, then that's something we have to plan for if we want to keep the program going. Is that fair?
Yes, I would anticipate for next year's 6th grade students that they will use a district set of laptops in order to do the same kind of work. That district set that's already purchased of laptops, or go to the computer lab.
Yeah, but we don't have those laptops now. Or we would be having these kids use them, right?
Well, the purpose behind Gear Up is to help students look and learn on the computer about career exploration and colleges. It's not really associated with every kid getting a computer, because that's not going to happen. It's one set of computers for them to use when they look at that. It adds another additional set of computers for the school. It's not necessarily tied to this particular set. They'll use this particular set ongoing, but it will be, sometimes they might need 2 sets of computers if they have a larger group doing some work on the computers. Like a computer lab plus an additional set that this set will provide. So this is a set paid for by GEAR Up, yes. But we have other district computers that would do the same work, that would work for the same goal.
Mr. Eads?
Yes, I think the real value of the program that is the 6 staff members, the school-based liaisons and the project coordinator, who will attempt to create that environment for our middle schools where they're expected to go to college. They're thinking about it early. The 180 computers that are part of this purchase are kind of a one-time bonus, but those are dollars that I think, we're looking at 2 years from now doing something similar to make sure the same level of technology support is there. And I think as a district we'll be able to do that. It's over $100,000 excuse me, worth of computers, but we'll be spending that much on technology every year. So I think you make a good point that this grant by itself isn't going to provide that same technology boost for every group of kids. But I think what the hope for, and the reason this program, this grant is spread over 7 years, it'll get these 6th graders to their senior year. And hopefully those school-based advisors and the project coordinator will help communicate and create that college-going environment. And frankly, when I look at our high school counselors, I mean, their load is about 400 students for every counselor. At middle schools, it's worse. So I think we're going to have to look at counselors and their role, and I think we can use this GEAR Up grant as a springboard to help our, not just these school-based advisors, but all of our counselors and eventually all of our adults have that expectation that kids will go to college. So I think that's where most of the money is in that staff. And this one-time pulse of technology is appreciated, and we know we need it, but we're going to have to spend more district general fund dollars on technology or get other grants or other funders or other partners who are willing to step up and help us keep this level of technology in our middle schools going forward. So you're right, it's going to be a challenge, but I think the big benefit is the staff that will have the time and the expertise to create that college-going environment beginning in 6th grade. So that's kind of the way I see that. So.
Well, I want to be clear. It's not I love programs like this, and we need to do them. My only question is the sustainability. Is if we're totally reliant, and if we're not looking at the total package for the total run. In other words, how do we sustain this going on? And that's a part of the evaluation of the program. And that's where my concern lies, because again, we have lots and lots and lots of areas within our district fighting over dollars that are needed. And most all of them have something to do with student achievement. And so my question is only about sustainability. It's not about the value of the program at all. And I think that's the $64,000 question, or $6.5 million. $6.5 million.
That's a great question. We're going to have to face that, I think, as a district, because this is not going to go on forever, and it is not going to be sustainable unless we find a way to fund it when the program runs out. If it's very successful, I think that'll give us a good impetus to try to find that funding and try to create that opportunity. This at least gives us a chance to test the concept of having some specialized dedicated advisors that focus on getting these 6th graders into college. And it's a prolonged process, but you're absolutely right. To sustain it, the board is going to have to designate dollars at a future date to sustain it, both for technology and for the staffs, the specialized staffs.
Mr. Richardson.
Oh, I was just saying, I think that the big funding issue outside of technologies, I think, is the $400 per student in the cohort that it costs for the staffing, and that's what we'll have to figure out. That $500,000 to $650,000 check each year is what the real ongoing cost is if we want to maintain the program.
Yeah.
And that's where we'll have to look at this and say, in a year or two, and say, or right away to say, we do want this to be in place for our 5th graders coming to 6th grade next year. And that's where we'll have to make that decision as it goes along to see if it's a worthwhile program to put general fund dollars into.
Right.
Because that $400 is a big deal.
It's a big amount of money.
It's a large amount of money, especially if you look across larger cohorts, because then it has to follow into high school. So it's really, if you want to get all cohorts involved, it's actually a much larger commitment than the $400,000 or $500,000, $600,000 commitment if you want
Right.
to keep going through. Anyway, I was going to ask another question. Do the dollars follow, or the program, it's tied to the school itself and not the student? Is that correct? So if there's a student
Right.
that, like with Franklin having so many kids, I'd presume that someday we might not have that same makeup and kids might be shifting around a little bit at some point.
They do get one advisor per middle school.
Okay.
However, we do know that Franklin is, for example, larger than Brentwood.
Right.
Right? And the advisors will work together with the principals and assistant principals to create this system of a college-going culture.
Okay.
So they'll be working together, but one person. We've put our most familiar advisor at Franklin, our most experienced person, Sandra Barrera. She will be the one at Franklin.
Okay. And then the data that's taken from this, I think that's part of, it's also kind of a data project. The data that's learned from this about the outcomes, is that tracked even if a student doesn't attend eventually one of the schools? Like, so they end up going to a charter high school or go to Romero or somewhere where the program doesn't exist for a period of time. Does it still track that student? Or once they are out of the qualified schools, I guess the program doesn't exist, so they're no longer a data point.
Right. We don't track them to other non-district schools.
Okay.
However, we do add students in their place, and we track those students
Okay.
instead.
Mr. Hafley, did you have a follow-up?
Oh, sorry.
No problem. Dr. Richard?
I apologize.
Just, it's an exciting opportunity for our students, and I'm reminded a lot of the AVID grant that we began with several years ago, and we had that opportunity over a number of years to see if that program was really a fit for our students, our community, and over those years, it clearly, we found the results were magnificent for our kids, and then as a board, we found the way to make sure that that was funded. And so once again, we have another opportunity that I think is a powerful one for our students. Well, yet to be seen how powerful it is. And should it prove itself, that then it becomes that challenge to the board of how do we make it so? How do we continue it on? So thank you.
A couple of comments I guess I have. First of all is to thank those involved in obtaining the grant,
Right.
which comes to District 6 as a result of sweat on many brows. And so we want to say thank you very much for bringing this one home. And please share that with your colleagues for us.
Thank you.
The other question I have is 1,600 students involved in this, and it's not a huge number of employees getting their sleeves rolled up to deal with these students. Will some of this be taking place in classrooms, or would this be, do we have a kind of a hint of how that would be processed for each of these kids?
You know, we right now are thinking there's an advisement time on Mondays that we will probably be using for some of this. And the principals will help us determine how best to train our students on some of these areas. Plus, we want our students at a young age to go and experience what college campus is and what the career pathways look like even at the high schools. So we want to build this whole experience for each one of our middle school students so that they get excited about school and really get excited about going to college.
This is kind of a picture in my mind of Johnny Appleseed kind of setting this stuff out and establishing the parameters by which we could probably mimic, even if we're not fully funded. We could still mimic what was successful in the previous effort. It just seems like an opportunity for us to keep good track of this and learn a lot so that the district can assert that students who have never thought of going to school beyond third grade might well, be encouraged all the way through to a college experience, or as you say, to a career option that they may not have expected.
Right.
So the challenge for us is to do it well and certainly anticipate being successful at. And so we thank you for that also.
Thank you.
Other comments? Well, it's been moved and seconded that we make the purchases associated with this Gear Up grant. Roll call, Ms. Brandt?
Mr. DeWitt?
Aye.
Mr. Haefele?
Aye.
Mr. Hall?
A very cautious but optimistic aye. Aye.
Dr. Richard?
Aye.
Mr. Richardson?
Aye.
And the motion carries 5-0.
Mark us all as optimistic. Thank you very much.